This is Canto 3. We have discussed Canto 1 of Rape of the Lock and Canto 2 as well. And in Canto 3, we see that the opening lines of this canto are a perfect example of the more heroic manner. First comes a description of Hampton Court, and then a mingling of the great and the little, the great Queen Anne. And we see that in the very first line, the Canto 3, the boat carrying Belinda and her party took them to Hampton Court. Remember where Belinda is going for the party? She is going to Hampton Court. To spell it out, it is Hampton, Hampton Court, a palace where the great Queen Anne sometimes held political consultations with her advisors and sometimes attended tea parties. And to this palace, the gallant young man and the beautiful young ladies came to enjoy for a while the pleasures of the royal court. And their conversation covered a wide range of the, you know, sorry, the conversation of them covered a wide range of trivialities and much of it attacking the character of various personalities. And it was not afternoon, it was the time when the hungry judges are in a hurry to sign their judgments. I hope you getting the that what kind of satire it is that Pope is calling the judges to the hungry judges that they are in a hurry to sign their judgments. When members of the jury hurriedly give their verdict of guilty against the accused. But before reading it further, I would like to come you back towards the text and that what we see in the opening lines of Canto 3 that written by Pope, he says in the Canto 3 line number 294, quote, which from the neighboring Hampton takes its name, here pretends statesmen of the fall for Dom, right? Of foreign tyrants and of nymphs at home, hear thou, great Anna, whom three realms obey, does sometimes counsel take and sometimes tea. Unquote. Here we see that the description of Hampton Court is that there stands a grand edifice which is known as Hampton Court, a name given to the to the court because of the village of Hampton nearby. And here in this palace, British statesmen often predict the fall of foreign dictators and of British ladies. And in the same palace, the great Queen Anne, who reigned over the three kingdoms of England. And what are the three kingdoms of this Queen Anne? These kingdoms were England, Scotland, and Ireland. And she sometimes hold political consultations in the Hampton Court with her advisors and sometimes attend tea parties. Why? Because it was the fashion at that time, in the age of Pope, in the Augustan age, in the classical age, it was a fashion that people comes to the court to attend the tea parties, and they just talk on the trivial things or the trivial subjects, right? And I have given you a whole description of Queen and that in the political aspect of this age, that what was happening at that time on the political level or on the historical level. I hope you remember. And we see that the first comes a description of Hampton Court, and then mingling of the great and then little. The great Queen Anne, who is sometimes taking counsel and sometimes tea. And the description of card game is masterly here. We see the description of card game by the name of game of ombre. The game of card name here has been mentioned as the game of ombre. O-M-B-R-E, ombre. Here we have a classic account of the game of ombre, and of course we in the present time cannot appreciate this account because the game of ombre is absolutely unfamiliar to us. But we cannot help admiring it is Alexander Pope's skill in describing the progress of the game and relating it to the theme of his poem, that how beautifully he just gave a description of this game of ombre and how it is related to the theme of this poem. I hope you remember the what is the theme of this poem, that is an irrational materialism, or an emptiness and frivolity of the upper class, or the vanity, the silliness and shallowness of man, women and their relationships, and false worships, what is prevailing at that age, right? So first, I'll be just explaining the whole paragraph, the whole canto to you, and later on I'll be telling all the important quotations from this text, because this canto of Rape of the Lock, Canto 3, is really very important. So many major things, or the major incident is going to happen in this canto only, the Canto 3. So I'll be giving all the important quotations afterwards. Let me just first explain the whole canto to you. And the lines in which Pope speaks about the hungry judges that I was talking about just earlier, that the hungry judges, description of hungry judges has been given. The juryman, the merchants returning from the exchange, and etc. etc. So many description has been given here. All of them are part of the satire on 18th century life, like how he just describing the judges, they were just after the money, and some people were just after the high class, and all of these frivolities, the irrational materialism can be seen easily there in the 18th century life. And the description of coffee making and coffee drinking is also a part of Pope's satire on the life of the time. And the fumes of the coffee, we are told that made the politician wise, it enabled him to see through all things with half shut eyes. Well, this is a beautiful line from Canto 3. I'll tell you that where these lines have been written, and we see that how beautifully he has given the description, that how coffee making and coffee drinking is an important part of that era of 18th century age, that people were thinking that if they are drinking the coffee they are wise, and if they are having coffee and they are making parties or tea parties or coffee parties, so they belongs to a upper class, or they belongs to an intellectual class, without even bothering themselves, that they are just wasting their time in the frivolities, in the triviality of that time, right? And the manner in which the Baron clipped the lock. Yes, we see the major incident on which the whole poem is based, that is the cutting of the lock in Canto 3. Please remember this point, that where you see the description of of this lock cutting. Now we see that Baron clipped the lock from Belinda's head is very amusing, and 3 times the Sils were able to warn Belinda of the danger, but ultimately the Baron was successful in his purpose. And Belinda's guardian sylph Ariel withdrew from the scene because Ariel found to his surprise that Belinda was not as pure in her thoughts as he had thought her to be. Ariel was taking Belinda as a super what would I call it, that super um like it is that she is very a lady with so much moralities, with so much high class of society, with so much of thought provoking, but the thing was actually different from the reality, because Belinda was not so much pious, or so much thinking of others person. So the Ariel got shocked to know that Belinda is quite different from her thoughts, from the thoughts of Ariel. And Ariel found that, to his surprise, that Belinda was not as pure in her thoughts as he had thought her to be, and Belinda is completely opposite of that. And the description of Belinda's wrath and her screams of horror are made to look funny, because we are told that her shrieks were louder than those of women who have lost their husbands or their lapdogs. Yes, these are the lines in Canto 3. These are also important lines. I'll be telling afterwards. Here, Pope says that the on cutting of a log, Belinda cries aloud. He cries in this manner that his wrath just came out, and she was sorry, she was, I was saying his, sorry, her rage just came out, and she was screams of horror, that that is actually a funny thing. Why? Why she is so crying aloud, and why she is doing so much noise, making so much noise out there? Because it is like that she has loosened or she has lost her virginity somewhere, but though the Baron just cut the lock of her hair, and we are told that her noise or her shrieks were so much louder than those of women who are just lost their husbands, or who have just lost their important or their lovely things, and those of women whose rich china vessels have fallen and broken into fragments. Here we have an example of what is called comic pathos. Please look out this term. What is this comic pathos? Because the example has been we see the whole description of this is an apt example of that comic pathos. That actually there is an incident that happened, a major incident happened, but the the consequences of that incident is louder than the thing happened actually. And the Baron's boast after he has won the glorious prize. And what was the prize? Prize for Baron is that he cut the lock of Belinda from Belinda's head. And it is as comic as Belinda's screams, because he is also showing now that he's won here, and he is doing something very great of very great kind of thing, though the thing is really very trivial. And similar is the thing, and similar was the reaction with Belinda. And the Baron declares that the winning of this prize will bring him immortality, and the touch of obscenity in the concluding two lines of this canto, whether conscious or conscious, is very noteworthy. Right? So this is the summary of the canto 3. And if I talk about the important lines from the text, let me just check out the lines. Which lines can be important to you? You please note all the lines I am going to mention from Canto 3, because this is an important canto where we see the climax is actually happening in this canto. Line number, I'll be telling to you. Wait a minute. Let me just have a look of the important lines. Yes, please note out the line number 390 from Canto 3 of Rape of the Lock. Line number 390. It goes like, quote, "O thoughtless mortals, ever blind to fate, too soon dejected and too soon elate," unquote. I repeat again, line number 390 from Canto 3 of Rape of the Lock. Line goes like this: "O thoughtless mortals, ever blind to fate, too soon dejected and too soon elate." What what is describing in this line? It is like, oh, thinking human beings who are always unable to see the ways of fate, and who become too quickly depressed and too quickly joyous. These honors shall suddenly be taken away, and this day of victory for Balinda will be converted into a day of disgrace and humiliation. Right? And the next important lines, let me just check it out. Hmm. It is from Canto 3, line number 418 to 420. Line number 418 to 420, where we see that the Clarissa, a friend of Belinda, is giving the weapon to Baron to get the lock cut. Right? And the line goes like this, I quote, "A two-edged weapon from her shining case, so ladies in romance assist their knight, present the spear and arm him for the fight." Unquote. I repeat it again from an line number 417. Line number from 417 to 420. Just then Clarissa drew with tempting grace a two-edged weapon from her shining case. So ladies in romance assist their knight, present the spear and arm him for the fight. unquote. So this is basically what it is. It is like a lady called Clarissa took out from her shining case a pair of Caesar. And what is this pair of Caesar? Pair of Caesar is basically an arm that she is giving to Baron so that he can cut the lock of hair from the head of Belinda. And Clarissa took out this weapon with such grace that the Baron felt tempted to make use of it. And the manner in which Clarissa gave this weapon to the Baron was similar to the manner in which ladies used to help their warlike lovers to get ready for battle by offering spears and other weapons. Sorry. Like by offering some kind of weapons and to them as romantic stories indicate, right? In these lines we are going that Baron is basically handling his weapons. And next important lines from this canto as well. What happens again that the uh, lock is finally got cut off. Actually, let me read all these lines because this is an important line. See that he takes gift with reverence and extends the little engine on his fingers ends. That this just behind Belinda's neck he spread, as over the fragrant stands she bends her head, swift to the lock, a thousand sprites repair. A thousand wings by turns blow back the hair, and thrice they twist the diamond in her ear. What is happening here? As soon as the sylph sees that the baron is going to cut the lock or going to do something that is won't be good for Belinda, a sylph just try to twitch the diamond which is Belinda wearing in her ear, so that she can be aware of the situation that what is going to happen with her. And what how many times the sylph does it? She she did it at 3 times, right? And the just in that instant, anxious Ariel sought the close recesses of the virgin's thought, as on the nosegay in her breast reclined, he watched the ideas rising in her mind. Sudden he viewed, in spite of all her art, an earthly lover lurking at her heart. Amazed, confused, he found his power expired, resigned to fate, and with a sigh retired. The pier now spreads the glittering forefox wide. The glittering forefox wide is basically a term given to assigned to the Caesar. And to enclose the lock now joins it to divide. Even then, before the fatal engine closed, a wretched sylph too fondly interposed. Fate urged the shears and cut the sylph in twain, but airy substance soon unites again. The meeting points the sacred hair dissever from the fair head forever and forever. Unquote. What we see here, the cord is finally, the lock is finally got cut, right? As soon as Clarissa gave that weapon to Baron, Baron accepts the gift respectfully and opens the scissors on his fingers hands, and he spreads the scissor just behind Belinda's neck when she bends her head over the fragrant and steaming cup of coffee. At this, a thousand spirits immediately come to protect Belinda's hair, and they all flap their wings by turns to swing back the hair and save it from being nipped by the scissor. 3 times the enemy approached her. Who is the enemy here? Enemy is Baron. And 3 times the spirits pulled out the diamond in her earring in order to draw her attention to the mischief, and 3 times she looked behind. Just at that moment, Ariel, who was feeling worried and who lay on a bunch of flowers which decorated her breast, tried to probe the secret corners of the Marian's mind. He observed the ideas taking shape in her mind, and he suddenly discovered that in spite of all her pretense, there was a human lover hidden in her heart. And Ariel was astonished and puzzled to see her sheltering a human lover in her breast. And he found that he had completely lost his power to protect Belinda. Why? because spirits like him could protect only maidens who had pure minds and who had no room in their hearts for earthly lovers. That was not the case with Belinda. And seeing no alternative, Ariel reconciled himself to what was about to happen and sighing regretfully withdrew from the scene. Now what happens? As soon as Ariel left, the Baron now spread the glittering scissor wide in order to hold the lock of Belinda's hair between its blades. And he then brought the two blades together in order to cut the lock. Even then, before the two blades met to cut the lock, an unfortunate sylph, in his anxiety to save the lock, placed himself between the blades. But what happens? The fate, showing no mercy, forced the blades to close. And the sylph who was trying to protect the lock of Belinda was cut into two, but the body of an airy spirit quickly unites again, even when it has been cut into two. And Belinda's sacred lock of hair was severed from her beautiful head by the meeting blades, and this lock would never be joined to her head again. Why? Because it is finally got cut. Another very important quotation that I need you to just mugify these lines. The lines goes like, I quote, not louder shrieks to pitying heaven are cast when husbands or when lapdogs breathe their last. Unquote. Line number 446 to 447. No, sorry, it's line number 446 to 448. You please remember these lines by heart. I repeat again the lines. The line goes like, not louder shrieks to pitying heaven are cast when husbands or when lapdogs breathe their last. Unquote. uh, and what Pope is trying to convey through these lines, we see that at this Belinda grew furious on seeing that her hair of lock got cut, and lightning seemed to flash from her eyes, and her screams of horror tore the frightened skies apart. And when a woman loses her husband or her lapdog, she doesn't utter such loud cries to win the pity of the gods as Belinda uttered on this occasion. Nor does a woman utter such loud cries when her rich china pots fall from a height and are broken into glittering and painted pieces to lie on the ground. Why he is saying so? That just this can be a thing people often do. That's people, or especially women, cries on losing something, that is very near to their heart. But here, on just losing a hair, a lock of hair, Belinda is cried like that she has lost her husband. And in very ironic manner, in very satirical manner, Pope is comparing the husbands to the lapdogs of female of that age of the 18th century. He is saying that the lapdog is equally important for the female of 18th century as well as the husband, right? And the victorious baron now called for garlands of victory to be worn around his brow, and because he had come into possession of the glorious prize. And what is the glorious prize? Prize was that, namely, Belinda's lock of hair. And he said that his name, his glory, and his fame would live as long as the fish swam joyfully in his streams, and as long as the birds flew about happily in the air, and this fame can be go as long as the beautiful British ladies drove in their carriages, and each drawn by six horses, and the vulgar books like Atlantis continue to be read, and and ladies sitting on small pillows on their beds received their visitors on holy days with numerous candles burning brightly arranged beautifully in their bed chambers. And he further says that his glory, or his possession of this glorious prize, can going be further as long as the beautiful maidens accepted the entertainment arranged by their suitors or made secret appointments with their lovers. Things that are not destroyed by time I brought to an end by the power of steel and solid